Hello everybody and welcome back to another report card video. Today we are going to be going over the Rebel Special Forces. A lot of cool options in this faction, and sometimes its identity can even be pointed to this category in particular in terms of troop selection. So once again, this is how I grade the units. Feel free to pause and check it out. First up, we have Clan Wren coming in at 110 points. That's because you have to take Ursa and Tristan. I know their base cost is lower. They have Jump 2. You got to take both those characters. You have Impervious, Nimble, and Retinue to Sabine, where you can get an aim or a dodge if you're at range 1 to 2. They are 2 health a pop and 2 courage. They search to hit and defend on red dice. They got 2 black in melee and 2 black at range 1 to 2, but this is just the no-name Mandalorian, or as my friends would say, Cousin Wren. Ursa Wren and Tristan Wren are also included in this squad, so consider them the 2 and 3 slot in terms of those troopers. Ursa's got a rainbow where she has Dauntless for the unit. She's also the leader. And then if you spend an aim, you can make her pistol range 3. On the other hand, you have Tristan Wren, who is 1 to 3 with 2 black dice, and he has lethal 1, making it pierce 1 and suppressive. Pros. These guys are all 2 wounds apiece. We'll talk more about this later, but that is really big on these units, especially when we're talking about a surging to defend unit. They can feel somewhat impossible to kill at times. And other times when you roll bad, it will feel a little bit better knowing that you have 2 wounds apiece on these characters. They also have great keywords. Got Nimble, Impervious, Dauntless, Longshot, Lethal, Suppressive. Clan Wren's got a good selection of things that allows them to do a wide variety of things. Also, Speed 3, Jump 2, don't really have to explain that, but it makes them highly versatile in positioning, objective play, and other cool things like that. Nimble's also really nice if you can get Vigilance, Dodges, that retinue going. You can really make Clan Wren that much harder to kill on top of their great saves. Cons though, and they do exist for Clan Wren, they're obligated to bring Sabine. That's kind of up to you. I don't really think they have to be. I would argue that they're better than the typical Mandalorian unit even without Sabine, but I will say they really want those tokens. Those tokens are needed for pretty much everything that's on their cards, on their upgrades. Any aims for long shot, aims for lethal, dodges for nimble, all of those things. And there's going to be other units fighting for those tokens as well, especially in the Rebel faction. With that being said, they're also really pricey, so you need this unit to perform, and it doesn't quite maybe have enough dice to validate that price, or enough going on to validate that price, but they're still really good. 3 models as well. If you ever make one bad roll, you can just want to tear your hair out when it comes to playing Clan Wren. So you get hit for 5 and you blank 3, you just lose a model. That's tough. Because you expect these saves to do good, but when they fail you, it hurts your feelings that much more. So a really good unit in my opinion. I think Sabine probably is best with them in terms of giving them command cards and things like that, but the retinue is really good for them to get things like Nimbles rolling every turn. Moving on, we have the strike team version of the Rebel Commandos. You have to take the Sniper or the Proton Charge Saboteur. Low profile is very nice. Scout 2, Sharpshooter 1, white die, search to hit and defend, 1 health apiece, 2 courage, black and melee, and extra black dice, range 1 to 3. Pros, I'm once again mostly talking about the Sniper strike team when I say most of these things. We'll talk about the Proton Charge in a second. Sniper adds safety and long range pierce. Really good in Rebel faction. There's already a decent amount of pierce, so not as crazy as in something like Empire where you can feel that impact a lot more, but there's nothing wrong with having a ton of pierce. Search to hit is really good. Plink, damage, typical sniper stuff, good foundation. You really can't go wrong with snipers once you figure out how to truly put them in the back of your lines and keep them safe and not get them shot at places like range 4 or 3. You'll figure out snipers pretty quick, and they'll just aim, shoot, aim, shoot, aim, shoot, and hopefully take off a decent amount of models throughout the game. But cons here, sabotage, or not sabotage, the Saboteur he's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. In a strike team, I don't think that's a very safe idea, because you could throw the charge and then move and get out of the blast radius, but even then you're trying to get into a position where that bomb essentially is going to make an impact on your game. That means you're probably moving towards your opponent, you're probably exposing yourself to different angles and flanks, and when you only have 2 models, yes, you have low profile, sure, this strike team can disappear very quickly. So I feel like the much safer option here is to take the Sniper, but I've definitely seen some people play the Saboteur, so I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I just don't think there's anything great about them either. Other thing, once again, talking about the snipers, is low output. This is just snipers in general. Sure, if everything goes perfectly, you kill 6 models throughout the game, most likely. But I would say that you're going to miss more times than not because there's a white dice in this sniper. It's a black and a white. Yes, they do search to hit, so that kind of evens things out compared to the Empire sniper. But I will say that you can easily find yourself just getting 1 hit, no crits, not 2 hits, and just not doing anything other than a suppression. But that's okay. They're still good at holding the back lines. Cohesion changes also hurts them because if you do get unfortunately sniped, you're going to have your sniper sticking out to wherever he was at, and that extra dude that kind of acts as a extra health, if you will, because you can't kill them both if you can't see them both, is now going to be out, maybe sometimes in the open. So that's something to consider. So I just think the snipers are fine. There's nothing amazing about them, but they're really good to just toss a cheap activation that's going to plink some damage from your opponents as they move up the board. Then we have the full team of Commandos, coming in at a starting of 48 points. Got low profile, Scout 2, Sharpshooter 1. Hey, look, it's all the same stuff. White dice, 1 health, 2 courage, 3 black, black at range 1 to 3, and a black in melee. The pros is, once again, they have low profile. And it's probably more important here than it is on the sniper team, just because this unit is really looking to get closer, especially with range 3 dice. You're going to need low profile. Especially with your surging to defend white dice, not bad, not good either. They surge to hit though, so that's nice in those dice pools, and then courage 2 as well is helpful for suppression purposes, obviously. Cons, dice pool is a lot smaller than most. I have some good friends that like to play these full commando teams, and it is interesting to see them, and I think that they can absolutely do some work, but they're easily one of my favorite things to target because they will absolutely disappear quicker than most, just because they're moving into range 3 to get most of their shots. And that's kind of my negative side of this, is every time I see a full commander team with a sniper rifle, I'm just like, imagine if that was a strike team and you never would have been at range 3 in the first place. But when they can get into range 3, it's a good little shot. 5 black, 1 white, pierce 1, sharp 1, not bad. But at the same time, I have to question if that dice pool is worth it. Not quite enough for me, at least, to have 6 dice at that range. So, the Saboteur on them, I feel like it feels worse because the same problem, like if you really need to detonate a bomb and you weren't able to move or throw the bomb and then move, you're taking the hit as well. So I feel like that can be pretty bad, especially when you have a full team that costs more points. So I'd argue it's even worse on them, but maybe there's some plays to be had. Not for sure on that, but I definitely think these guys are fine, and you should try them. I've seen some people starting to pick up this full commando team strategy instead of just strike teams. So it's been cool to see that in our community, especially. I'm sorry, guys. I am with everyone else. I wish the Mandalorians were better, or the Mandalorian Resistance in this case. They come in at 72 points. I give them a D-. They got jump to impervious, nimble, 1 health a pop, starting with 3 units, 2 courage, search to hit and defend, black-white melee, 2 black at range 1 to 2. They have 1 upgrade that you can put on these normal guys. You can put Tristan and Ursa on these dudes, but at that point, I don't know why you wouldn't just take Clan Wren, but still something to consider if you're interested in that, because it is effectively giving them 2 more HP. Now, Best Cat Duelist, he adds 2 red in melee. When you spend an aim, you can get Pierce 1. So, and if you spend a dodge, you can get immune to Pierce. So, actually, okay. I don't hate that upgrade. I think it's a little pricey for what it does, and it just kind of feels like the lamest upgrade you could have given to a Mandalorian. So I don't really understand this one. I think it'd be really cool if they did like a trooper upgrade pack for Mandos, especially with the show, and just add some different options for the squad for sure. But let's move on and actually talk about what we have for now. Okay, fast, nimble, red surging, search hit, impervious, right? We all know, hey, they're Mandalorians. There's a good chance that sometimes they just block 10 hits and you're super happy. On the other hand, they're 72 points, so when they don't block 10 hits and you take, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 wounds, then guess what? Your squad's gone. And that sucks. So 1 HP a pop is a huge thing for me, at least. Every blank dice is a huge negative for this unit. Range 2, that sucks in my opinion. They're fast and they've got jump, so they can get into those positions where they can get into range 2 easier than other units, so that's not the worst negative in the world, but the other side of that is you're also walking into range 2 of a lot of other things that are range 2. They have weak upgrades. Like I said, the duelist, that's what you get. Okay, he seems like a melee unit. I mean, sure, he adds 2 more black dice and another model to your unit, but past that, there's just nothing interesting about him. It's an expensive upgrade too, in my opinion, for what he gives you. I feel like the dice pool for the Mandos is really bad, especially in the current cover situation we live in. I regret to inform you, but a Scout Trooper squad throws the exact same dice pool. They just don't search to hit, but they have Sharpshooter 1. But obviously this team is way tougher, but it's also way more expensive. So I'm very hopeful that something changes soon. But they want tokens as well. They need nimble. They're going to need aims because even though they search to hit on those black dice, sometimes they're just going to roll kind of meh, and maybe you get a hit or two through cover, and your 72-point unit, or in this case 100-point unit with the upgrade, just doesn't do anything. Maybe take some shots. So, and bad rolls just feel especially terrible on Mandalorian Resistance. You get shot for, I don't know, 3 hits, and you just blank 3 dice. That there's not a worse feeling in Legion, in my opinion, than playing Mandalorians and just rolling a blank, like right off the bat, or just in one roll. So, I love these guys, but I think that they really need a little something to kind of spice up their card. They feel extremely outdated. They've always kind of felt in the bottom tier of Star Wars Legion, and they haven't done a whole lot of improving these guys, so very curious to see what they do. I think that the Mandalorian show will definitely give them something, and Mando fans to look forward to. And once again, if you like these guys, please play them, because they're some of the cooler models in the game. They're some of the more fun units to play, even though they're kind of lackluster. Everybody loves Mandalorians, so I'm with you guys. I want them to be better. So, but competitively wise, these guys are going to get smoked by a lot of different things. Moving on, we have the Pathfinders starting at 56 points. They have Danger Sense 3, Dauntless, and Infiltrate. 1 health a pop, 2 courage, search to hit and defend, 2 white dice at range 1 to 3, a black and melee, and then they have their long range and short range rifle config, which is free now, so you can just staple that on pretty much automatically, and when you recover, you can flip it to one side or the other. But yeah, so pros, you got Infiltrate, range 4, surging, and all the white dice, along with Dauntless. So Infiltrate is good, positioning, getting into areas of the board you need to, getting close to as a recover the supply box that you can, getting good board pressure early. All of those things are really great for Pathfinders. My favorite thing about Pathfinders is easily the long range 4 config, the fact that it doesn't evaporate. In other words, it doesn't exhaust, that's what I meant to say. You can just keep doing it every single turn. Aim, shoot, aim, shoot, aim, shoot. So I really like that. And going along with that, you have Biston and Pow as their upgrades. I think they're both solid upgrades. I wish there was a third one, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Biston at range 4, you've got your 4 white dice. How about another 4? And then a black on top of that. With Impact and IL-1 for 28 points. Not too bad. It is exhaustible, though, and that's easily the worst part about it. He's also 2 health, so that helps them stay alive a little bit longer. But definitely a solid upgrade, especially when supported by a couple of command cards and different things that can let you recover. Pow, red and a white at range 1 to 4. He's got Inspire 1, and he's also got 2 health. Definitely a cheaper upgrade, and I think that's appropriately priced for the differences in these two. But I think both of them are actually very solid upgrades, and I have nothing against either. Biston's maybe a little too expensive, but nonetheless. All the white dice, though, once again, range 4 shots, pretty solid. The only unfortunate part is, once again, we're talking about white dice, so we can definitely fall off quickly. Dauntless is also super helpful because of what we're about to talk about. But 2 upgrades in terms of cons. It sucks for people that want to run 3 Pathfinders because there's literally no reason to do that unless you just really want to. A naked Pathfinder squad, in my opinion, just doesn't have much of a purpose other than maybe go grab a very specific objective. So that kind of feels bad. Danger Sense is really good. Don't get me wrong. When I say all the white dice, I mean on defense and offense. You put like duck and cover on these dudes. You get shot, get a suppression, maybe you already had one. You get 2 extra dice, right? Really good, but it kind of feels like a slot machine. You got your 10 white dice versus 4 hits. Or not 10 white dice, but, like 7 white dice versus 4 hits, and you're like, oh, sick, I'm going to block all these, and you maybe block 1, and then you just gave yourself, another suppression, and now you're at like 5. That's easily the biggest thing I see with Pathfinders is people are like, yeah, I'll take a suppression, yeah, I'll take a suppression, yeah, I'll take a suppression, and then they don't block anything, and they just are panicked and suppressed the rest of the game. So it's kind of a balance, and I think these units actually take a decent amount of time to understand and maybe learn when to take suppression and not take suppression, or better yet, when to use danger sense in terms of gaining suppression for things like duck and cover, and when not to. Also, infiltrating can be a very difficult thing to do. And then their range 1 to 4 and even range 1 to 3, they're white dice. They do surge to hit, so aims and everything like that does feel valuable for them. So kind of feels like a trap to use that danger sense sometimes, but for the most part, it is a good utility option. It's just this is probably one of the more suppressed units in the game that I've ever seen. But very good unit. I put it at C-, mostly because of the suppression problems, and their dice pool can be good, but it can also be really, really bad, and you're usually going to get that bad version more often than not, because you're looking to recover shoot with things like Biston, not aim shoot. Okay, I'm at range 3, awesome. Like, there's just other things that are going to be able to clear you out before your danger sense starts stacking up. But nonetheless, a super cool unit, and you guys should definitely play them if you enjoy them. Then we have the Wookie Warriors coming in at 69 points. They've got Charge, Duelist, Indomitable, and Scale. They are 3 health a pop with 3 models starting off, 2 Courage a piece, and they surge to hit. They've got 2 black and melee and a black and white at range 1 to 2. Easily their biggest pro is they are 3 health a pop, so, even against Force users like Vader, throwing his 6 red dice, probably going to kill 2 of them, but even if he blanks 1 dice, that's 1 Wookiee. So there's definitely better things that Vader could be swinging at. So it's kind of a trap. A lot of people will put big key pieces into Wookiees and say, oh, they don't surge or anything on defense. I'll just murder all of them. And then they realize it's going to take like quite literally 3 to 4 turns of swinging a lightsaber to get rid of all of them. So they're really good at just kind of stopping up units and taking those small, more effective hits, if you will. They're also Courage 2 and Indomitable, so they can really handle suppression very well. Giving them red defense dice to roll for their suppression rolls is going to help them get into melee without being suppressed and losing actions. They also have a really good melee pool. I mean, the 2 black dice surging to hit, and we'll look at their battle shield upgrade and even other things. That's just going to make that dice pool that much better. And tenacity is always like pretty much a staple on these guys. Don't have to, but it just makes their dice pool really good, especially with Duelist. All the upgrades kind of work on Wookie Warriors besides maybe the long gun, but we'll talk more about that later. Cons, big dice pool will absolutely destroy these guys. It's the main reason they're not the hyper competitive animal everybody thought they were a long time ago. Or not a long time ago, but a while back. They're still really good, but clone fire support, devastating for these dudes. Big shooting dice pools are just going to tear through these Wookiees very quickly. Heavy cover can only do so much when you do not surge to defend in any way, shape, or form. So they still have a bunch of HP though, but it is a very feels bad moment when you are getting shot at range 3 and stuff like that, and you're just losing 2 Wookiees instead of 1 to Vader. Because, you're stopping up Vader, you're maybe hitting them back, things like that, but the Wookiees may not even be ranged to shoot anything or do anything, and they're just losing models. And the meta we kind of live in now definitely is a lot more shooting and a lot less melee, so these guys kind of suffer as a result of that. The other massive thing for me, and my biggest complaint about Wookiees, is they are probably one of the more map-dependent units in the game. A lot of the other melee units we've talked about and will talk about have like a secondary support role. A lot of them have Guardian, like Magna Guards have Guardian, IRG have Guardian. That still gives them a lot of options in terms of what they can do no matter what type of map you get, right? Wookiees are very straightforward. W key coming towards you, I'm going to try to tear you up. Sure, they can backline for your army if you need them to, but they are very mobile. And it used to be because they had scale. Scale's absolutely been thrown into the dirt, and it's just not good or even useful anymore for the most part. It still has some purposes, but you might as well just call it unhindered. The way scale used to work, they were very fast and very dangerous. But that also goes along with the map dependency. If you have a map with a lot of buildings and things like that, you can still kind of utilize scale, or more importantly, climb in this situation to get the most out of your Wookiee Warriors. But if you get a big open map with some firing lanes, it's going to be really hard to get your value out of these dudes. So, once again, they can fall off with losses. Every Wookiee you lose is kind of tough. Even when you're down to 1 Wookiee, though, that's still good enough to go engage into a stormtrooper squad or B1s or whatever you need to tie up for that turn. So these guys are pretty cool. I love the Wookiees, honestly. So I think they're still a pretty decent unit. Above all, I think just with the game state that we're in right now, they struggle to make up that value as the game goes on. But yeah, let's look at their friends, though. The Wookiee Warriors that shoot, the Kashyyyk resistance, if you will, Indomitable, Scale, and Sharpshooter 1. Also 3 models apiece, coming in at 72 points. Got 3 health apiece and 2 courage with white defense dice once again that do not surge. They do surge to hit, though. They've got a black and a white melee, and then 2 white at range 1 to 3. I think these units are pretty interesting. I don't see a ton of them, but I have played them a decent amount as fire support options for clones and just some fun rebel lists I've had. But Sharpshooter 1 is good right now, nothing wrong with that. Solid ranged upgrades, which we'll look at in a second, make their dice pools at range 1 to 3 pretty good. And they help a lot because those 2 white dice aren't doing much for this 72 point entry fee that we're getting for this type of unit. They also have a really good melee for a ranged unit. I think that's a little overlooked. They can really be a good backline unit that just sits in your gun line and then Vader comes up and you can just move and punch him. It's by no means terrifying what they can throw in melee, but you have to respect it to some degree. Plus, they surge to hit both ways, so it helps just as much melee as it does at ranged. Guys have the same amount of health, so unless you have ginormous dice pools, that little sniper shot isn't going to do much to a Wookiee warrior at range 1 to 3, right? So, cons, once again, those big dice pools will mow these guys down. You start getting into conversations like fire supports or ATST, whatever it is, can absolutely delete this unit quickly and efficiently. The other thing is, just like we talked about with the Pathfinders, they have a super swingy dice pool. Surging to hit's great, but unless you're getting aims, and I do mean aims, not aim, these dice pools can absolutely fall off very quickly, and unfortunately, that can be really rough for the Rebels, as they don't have a ton of options to give out aims on a majority of their commanders and things like that, but still a super cool unit, and I think with some of these upgrades, it gives them a good chance. So Battle Shield Wookiee, offense, defense, you can flip it at the start of your activation to go speed 2, 2 red, or you can get armor 1 and 2 black. Very good upgrade for the Wookiee Warriors, the melee version especially, or I'd kind of argue maybe only the melee version, but still really good. You could also, I guess, put this on a ranged unit and just kind of stay in armor 1 to pretend you're a B1 at range 1 to 3. But I think these keywords on the right make the ranged Wookiees and even the melee Wookiees quite viable. So the Bowcaster Wookiee, I think, works on both squads really effectively. It is a pricey upgrade in my opinion, but it's absolutely worth it in the right list. A red and a white at range 1 to 3, giving you some keywords that are very good, Impact 1 and Pierce 1. So just adding that red dice adds for some more efficiency, but the Pierce 1's kind of here what I'm focusing on top of the Impact 1. So really good to add to your ranged Wookiees especially, but the melee Wookiees can sometimes run setups where you just get into range 2 because they somehow have a better range 2 shot, or a better shot at range 2 than the ranged Wookiees with a black and a white. The long gun Wookiee is 2 blacks at range 1 to 4, and it's suppressive. I've seen these guys a decent amount of times from a good friend of mine that likes to run them, and I think they're pretty solid as the upgrade for 26 points. Suppressive is also a really good keyword, so nothing wrong with that. I don't know how many shots at range 4 you're going to be taking by itself, if that makes sense, but you could potentially get one through. So nonetheless, I think all these are pretty solid upgrades that help the Wookiees out quite a bit. But yeah, they're a solid unit, and they're so cool, right? Like, just like the Mandalorians, the Rebels have a lot of cool, unique options that, Star Wars-wise, a lot of people love, and Wookiees being on that list. So, in summary, there's actually a lot of choices, and much like the Empire, there is a bunch of diversity. Melee, ranged, infiltrate, all that stuff is present here. If you want it, you got it. You've got a completely fleshed out selection in terms of you picking up Rebels tomorrow and buying some Special Forces. Nothing is super meta, and this may sound like a bad thing, but it's also a good thing, in my opinion, because that means all of those options are probably things you can consider buying a box of Pathfinders, this or that, and maybe one day they get eroded to be a little bit better. Especially if we're talking about Mandalorians, I really don't think they'll leave them where they are in terms of how popular shows like The Mandalorian are. People are talking about it. So which brings me to this, but we've got a whole show going on right now. We're seeing all kinds of different gadgets and guns and things the Mandalorians are using. So it's more of a personal vendetta of most of the people I play Legion with, but they really want Mandalorians to have more options, and I get it. It's very odd that one of the coolest Star Wars elements that we know of, Mandalorians, don't have a ton to offer in this game outside of Clan Wren. Having some more diversity at least. The one Mando squad having that one upgrade just kind of feels lackluster. So, like I said, I know I gave him a bad grade. Go pick him up because I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of months we see an announcement for a Mandalorian upgrade box or Mandalorian Battle Force, whatever it is. So these guys are super cool, but yeah, they're in need of some love. Scale hurt Wookiees a lot. They used to kind of be a really big problem for most lists, and people were talking about them a lot as being one of the best units in the game. And unironically, they have not been touched or nerfed in any way besides scale. It absolutely did hurt them though, taking away a lot of their movement and a lot of things that made them special in terms of getting a little bit extra movement and getting up the board quicker for melee especially. And even the shooty Wookiees getting into range 3 quicker than most. But nonetheless, there's also other things going on in the game. Like I said, there's just more big dice pools being thrown across the table, especially at range 1 to 3. So to cover that distance without losing a bunch of your bodies is going to be pretty tough right now. But still a really great unit, and under the right hands, you're going to be just fine. Most of these units were also not affected by the recent errata. I know I just talked about the Wookiees, but besides that, hey, you've got a whole army of stuff that is relatively safe. I know I talked about the rebels getting hit the hardest by the errata. Special forces are kind of excluded from that conversation, especially Pathfinders, snipers, commandos, Mandalorians even were pretty much not touched besides Mandos and their dodges and vigilance and things like that. But a lot of those options are still just as good as they were yesterday, so no biggies there. If you like any of those units, now's the time to play them for sure. Gimmicks wise, I do feel like this is kind of an oddity with the Rebel faction. They have a lot of gimmicks and a lot of cool, like, haha, got you moments, especially with their commanders and their command cards. There's not a lot of that going on here in terms of the special forces. So they're much more so the elite, if you will, of the Rebel army at times. Even though they don't always feel like that, it's definitely the role you're kind of looking for. So when you play these units and you don't feel like the unit you paid for or you're putting on the table, like your Pathfinders, are very elite, that's probably a good sign that maybe you should try something else, or maybe you should go for something else. Because I do feel like that is their best description for Rebels, is a lot of their core troopers are pretty standard, looking for plink damage, dodging, taking small shots, receiving small shots. These Special Forces units, for the most part, are looking to throw big dice pools and make things happen. But it doesn't always work out like that. But nonetheless, some cool options for Rebels. Hope you guys enjoyed this report card video. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me all about it. Check out Jerry's Game Workshop, being the link of my channel and this video. He's got great battle reports that come out every once in a while. And yeah, hope to see you guys around. Chat it up of anything you'd like to see. We'll continue the report card series, but we might be doing some tips and tricks videos next for new players. But you guys have a good one.